Good evening and welcome to this special broadcast on the Pakistani elections 2018. I'm Aisha Sindhu. In an interview to a British newspaper, the chairman of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the man who's being billed as the frontrunner for Pakistan's prime ministership and Pakistan's only World Cup winning cricket captain, Imran Khan, has said that the biggest mistake of his life was his second marriage. Well, the lady who formed part of that union joins us herself. British Pakistani writer and journalist Reham Khan is with us from London, and I'd like to hand over to her now to hear what she has to say about her ex-husband's statements. Reham, good evening. It's over to you.
Thank you, Aisha, and good evening. Yes, indeed, I couldn't agree more with this statement of Imran, and there's very few things that I agree on with him, but this I do agree was his biggest mistake, and I'll tell you why exactly it was the biggest mistake. Because you see, we have celebrities like himself and self-proclaimed leaders like himself surrounded by sycophants, and this time round he found someone who would call a spade and who would not really be able to flatter his ego, and was telling him exactly what was wrong with his government and what was wrong with his decision-making or lack of decision-making problems. And since I'm not a puppet, I think that I do not have any respect for those who are puppets or who have no moral compass. So indeed, I'm in that respect certainly very different, and that perhaps was a shock to the system and perhaps a shock to the ego also. And this is a first for him, because a lot of people have a lot more information, a lot more knowledge, maybe have spent over 22 years with him, and certainly other women as well as men within the party, all of them know that what I'm saying is absolutely true. But nobody has had the courage and the guts to call it out and to say it very clearly, very bluntly, and put it out there to expose the reality. So of course, I mean, this in his eyes obviously is a mistake, and I couldn't agree more with that, because he should have been a bit more careful, maybe chosen another sycophant, maybe chosen someone who would be a party to his turning a blind eye to corruption in the KP government and also within the party. I wasn't going to do that. For me, the homeland and Pakistan comes first, and if it means sacrificing someone who is close to you and distancing yourself from them, I will do that. If it was my own son or my brother, I would still do that. For me, Pakistan comes first. There is no compromise on that. So it is an ideological rift. It was always an ideological rift, and I couldn't compromise my principles. I cannot compromise my principles like Imran Khan. Over to you, Aisha.
Reham, if I can also ask you about the timing of this interview to the Daily Mail. Do you think that this is also in part a reaction to your book? He has maintained a silence so far on the book that has come out. But now, just 3 days before we go to the polls, he's gone and made this statement. Do you think it's strategic?
Well, I think if it's strategic, then he is. If I was a political advisor, I would say that was a bad move. I think it is strategically showing incompetence, really. And that has always been the problem, where even, and that was mainly the argument, that I would say that even if people are not disloyal to you, they are incompetent. And I feel that the image deconstruction and the destruction of a hero that we've seen from the beginning of this year, pre my book, is actually because of very, very bad advice. And here today he stands defamed. It's a tragic fall for a hero. It shows his frustration. I think that it's everybody around the world now is writing about the fact that it is looking like a very, it's not even a sham democracy. It's actually just a selection process, and it's been called the dirtiest election in Pakistan's history. So that is certainly going to make him look very edgy and nervous, and this was the wrong idea. To give an interview to a tabloid was a knee-jerk reaction, and I think very, very misguided. He should have known better than that. But of course, that's the problem, you see. This is the way they've handled this book, and the way they've reacted to it is actually exposing their incompetencies and, as I've repeatedly said, the buffoonery. So I think that this is not a very clever strategic move.
Okay, we'll leave that part of our conversation at that for now. I want to talk to you about what he mentioned in the interview that ran on our channel yesterday, where he's made three very important points. He says, first of all, that the Pakistan military backing the PTI is it's balderdash, it's not true. He says that the ISI's role in this election is limited to the role that it perhaps has had is in any election. Again, that it's not backing the PTI. And he says that if he comes to power, he is going to end the relationship, as he calls it, a one-sided relationship with the US. He doesn't want Pakistan to be, let's say, a hired gun to America. If I can ask you to respond to these three critical statements that Imran Khan made in that interview.
Well, let's go from the third point first. So in the book, I've clearly said, and this is a former DGISI, General Ehsan, saying to me and confirming another politician who had told me that there had been a strategic meeting between Henry Kissinger and, at the time, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, and there was a third individual in the meeting, and that was James Goldsmith. And this was confirmed to me by the DGISI, and I have reported it as I heard in the book. So I don't understand this open rhetoric against the US, but why is he then Kissinger's favored boy, or what was the plan? Somebody needs to come out and explain this. If I am misguided by these people who have informed me of this, then somebody needs to make a statement about it. So I don't buy the rhetoric. I think that all of this a lot of the problems of radical extremism in our region have been implanted by the US. And let's not forget Zia. Let's not forget the Afghan Mujahideen was actually a creation because of the US-Pakistani relationship at the time. We were a proxy for the US at the time, and we served that interest. And I think we've become more of a proxy. We're not fighting proxy wars in other countries for the US anymore. We have become a proxy. And with Imran, actually, it looks very, very sinister. It seems like he is going to drive us towards a very extremist image. And that fits in with the US policy around the world, where you implant Islamist regimes and then you place an embargo, label it a failed state. And so the Imran that they're actually promoting today, all of the machinations that are going to bring him into power, they are going to, mark my words, they're going to, in a couple of weeks' time, malign him, defame him, call him a Taliban apologist, call him an extremist, and then really defame him. And this would be at the cost of not just an individual, but a country that will be labeled extremist country. And that is not my experience, having lived there for the last 5 years. The claims about the intelligence agencies or the establishment not being involved in it, I don't know why he needs, why is this apologetic attitude of his? It seems a little bit of a guilty self-conscious here, and he has let out, as you said in your intro as well, he's let this slip out as well, that no one can come into power in Pakistan without the establishment support. If that were the case, then he's actually accepting the fact that if this time he is going to come into power, it will be because of the establishment's support. He has said in the interview to WION that Nawaz Sharif was the protege of the establishment, and now that he's stood up against the establishment, they have problems. He is admitting these things in the interview himself. So he's actually, is he saying now, and a lot of people do know, that Imran is a creation of the General Hamid Gul lobby? This isn't something that is groundbreaking or breaking news for anyone. So it's a bit of a pot calling kettle black, because that's what his origins tell us. It tells us of a closeness with President Musharraf. It tells us of a closeness with General Shuja Pasha, and all of this behavior, this apologetic and this very conciliatory behavior with the establishment and the military that has been demonstrated by the entire party, as well as with Imran, it hasn't gone missing. Nobody's blind in Pakistan or the rest of the world. We've seen Imran say these things in public for the last few months, if not longer than that. And of course the dharnas as well, which I talk about in the book as well. I have a personal insight where clearly he is telling me that he is going to be supported and that he has been guaranteed this, he is the chosen one, as I say. So I think that this is just him looking at all of these reports. One of the more interesting things that he said, I think yesterday or the day before, was the fact that all of these international publications it's a conspiracy of the West to malign the country, and they are calling it a sham elections or a sham democracy. And these the same sources that he's quoted, for example, The Economist, he was perfectly fine giving them a podcast only a few months ago. So it can't work both ways. I think you either like the Western media or you dislike the Western media. So when they say anything against you, anything that goes against you and is not in your favor, you suddenly exhibit this fascist approach towards media. And we've seen this in Pakistan, but now it's directed towards international media streams who are criticizing these elections and labeling them farce and indeed shambolic, which they are.
Okay, and as you mentioned, I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too, but going off of what you just said about Imran Khan defending the Pakistani establishment, he's actually gone out and lashed out at the critics of the army and for accusing it of rigging the election. Stay with me, Reham. Mr. Khan was indirectly pointing at Nawaz Sharif's PMLN. He said that those who were experts in rigging elections are now blaming the Pakistani army for the very same thing. On Sunday, a large number of Sharif supporters shouted ISI Murdabad or death to the ISI near the Pakistani army headquarters, alleging that the elections had been fixed by the ISI. These protests took place outside the drugs court, where a PMLN leader was awarded life imprisonment. Listen in.
जो इंटरनेशनल मीडिया इंटरनेशनल एस्टेब्लिशमेंट के इशारे पे चलता है, हिंदुस्तान का मीडिया और यहाँ की वो जमातें हैं जो रिगिंग के एक्सपर्ट्स रही हैं, शुरू हो गए हैं कि जनाब इलेक्शन में फौज रिगिंग करवा रही है। जिनके पास अपनी हिफाजत करने के लिए फौज नहीं थी, उनके हाल देखें। सोमालिया से शुरू हो, जो एक ऊपर से लेके जाए, एक एक मुल्क की तबाही, सीरिया, सारे मुसलमान मुल्क में खून ही खून हो रहा है। हम तो शुक्र करें कि हमारे पास ताकतवर फौज है, नहीं तो आज इस मुल्क के 4 हिस्से हो चुके होते।
All right. Reham, we've already talked about and touched upon Imran Khan being looked upon as one of the army's favorites. I can see you smiling. Why don't you react to that statement for us as well before we move further on how the youth looks at Imran? But first, your reaction to his statement.
Well, Aisha, it would be funny if it wasn't so tragic, because, I mean, he doesn't leave any room for people to even justify or sort of cover up this blatant, I can't really think of a polite word where he's literally, I mean, he is fangirling for them. I don't know what anyone would make out of this. And the fact that he's blaming now the Indian media and the Western media, this is the same Indian media that made him a celebrity and a star, let's not forget. And it's perfectly fine to take money off Indian media to build you in a celebrity and to come and host shows for them when it suits you. And he's a huge celebrity in India and in the world, particularly because it all started from that celebrity status awarded to him in India. And also the sort of things he's saying, I mean, really, somebody needs to sit him down. I was listening to the interview yesterday, forced to listen to that interview on WION TV, where he's really confused about the Marxist theory. Somebody needs to sit him down. I think it's been a very long time since he's been to Oxford University, and he's forgotten the Marxist theory. And what he was talking about was actually really forgetting the principles of Marxism. And here also, I think he fails to understand what he's talking about: the Arab Spring, he's talking about intervention in Syria, and is he for a minute, I mean, he's saying that we have a strong, powerful military, and thank God for that, because had it not been for the military, I remember in personal conversations, there's the same man cursing the military for the Bangladesh experiment. The fact that nobody's forgotten. So I think the gentleman needs a quick fact check, a quick history lesson about Bangladesh, about 1971. He needs a quick lesson in Marxist theory, and he needs a quick lesson in how not to expose your links to the establishment by making these statements.
All right. But he seems to have his finger on the pulse. He seems to be saying all the right things. I mean, let's not forget that, the age group of 18 to 35 right now forms about 43% of the registered voters in Pakistan. Is Imran Khan somebody that these young people look up to? I mean, he's cricketing royalty. He's Pakistan's only Cricket World Cup winning captain. He has lived a colorful life. He's a good-looking man. A lot of people have, looked at his Playboy image as something, especially for young men, to look up to. Do you think that he has that potential, so to speak, of reaching out to the young voter of Pakistan, which is a critical segment of the electorate this time?
Absolutely, and that is the real concern for people like me. That's a real concern. I would go further than that, and I've said this many a time again, and I've tweeted as well about this, and people have taken it, to use it against me. But I do think that there has been only one celebrity, one hero created in, I said it at the time, in 67 years. I think in 70 years, there's only one celebrity in Pakistan. And so with this celebrity status comes a lot of responsibility. There are a lot of young men and even young, the youth in general looking up to this man. People copy his hairstyle, people copy the way he speaks, which is a concern. We're going towards an abusive, trolling culture because of the things he says in speeches. None of his speeches are decent enough to be printed in our textbooks. This is not the way of people, politicians or leaders of our past. People have beautiful rhetoric and have been appreciated even in India for the way they speak. And of course, Jinnah, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, people like Bacha Khan, a lot of people, to this day you can listen to their speeches and they're relevant because they make a lot of sense. How he's connected with the youth, with Imran, it's because his speeches are repetitive, which is a very good way of brainwashing. It's almost like advertising and marketing techniques. So they're short, they're repetitive, they're simple words, there's a lot of name calling in it. So, and he labels people, calling the Sharifs not by their surname, but calling them the mafia, calling Maulana Fazl Rahman certain names. And this is a sort of culture where you see this in school. It's a school bully tactic. But sadly, this is something that appeals to human nature and appeals to younger people. And that's a concern. If people are following, and particularly the youth, are following this role model, that's the problem. And that's why a lot of people in Pakistan call him the Pied Piper. We do not want our youth to be led, to drown following him. And that's the real fear, particularly with the new extremism look and the image. That's the problem. For example, the incident at the shrine. And I say that again, that in his capacity, in his role, he has a lot of responsibility to look responsible, to not look superstitious, and not to be promoting practices that are certainly have no place either in practicing Muslim households, but also in the liberal or the moderate world at large, and certainly in Pakistan. These are frowned upon. This is not something that we want to encourage. And the trend towards hate politics, this is being encouraged by Imran. He's spearheading that campaign. And this is why people like youngsters like Bilawal Bhutto are a breath of fresh air. We may not agree with his long-term political ideas or the fact that he's still very much under the influence of his father, something that a lot of ideological supporters of Bhuttoism do not like. But he's making the right moves. He is against hate politics. Time and time again, from Davos to his speeches, he is promoting a politics that is based on decency, ethics, and he speaks out against hate politics. Imran is not doing that, and that's a very dangerous thing to do. And we've not yet even gone into the blasphemy act that he's been going into his speeches about the Article 295A. Very dangerous things to lead the whole country, particularly the youth, into.
Right, and it's interesting you brought that up, because for many people they're calling him a moderate or at least a purported moderate version of Ziaul Haq. And it's interesting because in that interview yesterday he actually went out and said that Nawaz Sharif was the creation of Ziaul Haq, and yet the same person has this relationship with the military, which everyone alludes to. He of course shrugs it off, but we've spoken about this, but I guess there's more context to it now after yesterday's conversation. That is Imran Khan looking at a future, at a possibility where, he could be referred to as Nawaz Sharif 2.0?
Well, you see, there's so many problems I have with this. And let's not talk about the Sharifs or whatever they did. It's absolutely right that Nawaz Sharif with the IJI, yes, and with the close connection with Zia and their speeches, there's things that we cannot actually sort of, nobody can defend those. But let's look at the facts on the ground at the moment. So it's interesting. When I landed back in 2012 in Pakistan, one of the things that I was shocked about was that I had left Pakistan sort of post-Zia years, and I'm a child who grew up in the Zia years. I saw the Afghan Mujahideen. I saw the reverence towards Zia-ul-Haq. I know how people felt when he after the crash, when he was killed in the crash in 1988, and I also saw the Nawaz Sharif family at the time. So when I was back in Pakistan in December 2012, the first thing that I saw, and I was shocked and I didn't recognize, were posters of this very attractive young woman on PMLN banners pre-election, and I was surprised and shocked that it was actually a member of the household. It was, of course, Maryam Nawaz Sharif's daughter, and I couldn't have never in 1,000 years imagined that a family member, his own daughter, would be out there on the posters. Now look at the evidence. We've seen Maryam Nawaz Sharif out there with crowds and scores of people, shaking hands with people, looking very much like the modern face of Pakistan, very much relevant in 2018, a really good image, a role model for women to aspire to be. Let's not go into the politics, just look at the image. It's a very refreshing sight. So we've seen Nawaz Sharif's daughter, Maryam Nawaz, lead her father away from whatever the extreme right-wing origin was, the Zia stamp was, and we've seen her move towards a progressive look for the party and indeed for Punjab and for Pakistan. Now look at the banners that we're looking at from the PTI. We have a candidate from the PTI, a woman candidate for a seat in the National Assembly, and her face is not on her own poster campaign. Her husband's face is on it. So are we looking at a faceless, a voiceless world with Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in power? How is this woman going to represent someone like me and somebody who's sitting in parliament who cannot even show her face on a poster campaign? And I do not understand how that is even Sharia compliant, because she could be covered up modestly and still be visible. So we are looking at women becoming invisible in Naya Pakistan, and that's something we really need to look into very, very carefully, because that's not the Pakistan I live in. I see vibrant young women, very vocal young women, and even older women who have worked very hard to work towards a progressive Pakistan. Again, I go back to the PMLN, who had introduced the Women Protection Bill for Punjab. That was actually a very brave step, because they were ridiculed and they were criticized by members of their own family and members of their own political party, and they were seen to be apologetic about it. But they made sure that it was implemented, it was passed through the assembly, and it is actually making a lot of difference in Punjab. So that is the reality we have to live in. I'm very uncomfortable with all of this extremist and making women disappear from our political debates. That is something that we must give credit to Maryam Nawaz Sharif for.
And I'm glad to say that you're not alone. I mean, especially when you're looking at social media emanating from Pakistan, there are a number of people who are rejecting this ideology as well. I'm glad you brought the Sharifs up, Reham. Military in Pakistan or a court of law in India. What politicians in both countries, however, can do is improve living conditions in jail, so all prisoners don't have to complain of poor facilities in case they fall foul of the law. Let's go back to Reham Khan, the journalist and author, joining us from London right now. Reham, the solitary confinement, bad conditions in the jail, Mr. Sharif's purported deterioration in health, isn't this a big risk that the administration is also taking by choosing not to take him to a hospital outside of Adiala jail?
Absolutely, Aisha, and I'm surprised that they've taken this decision, because the sources that were telling us from the ground yesterday suggested that the authorities were very nervous, actually, because they were very worried about anything happening to the former Prime Minister. And in fact, they were, what I heard was that the former Prime Minister was stubbornly refusing, actually, preferential treatment or being moved out. And the authorities were very concerned that if something were to happen to him, this would actually sort of, they were thinking about the sympathy wave, and they were thinking about how the voters would react to this. So I'm a bit surprised at this decision, that they found that there's nothing wrong with him, because I thought it was the other way around. I do think that the way they're being treated and the reports that are coming out, this is now, because of social media and because of WhatsApp groups, certain things cannot be hidden. And two things are very shocking about all of this. Oh, you mentioned Benazir Bhutto, but one of the things which was very surprising to me was that they've taken a woman into custody, and they've taken her from the airport, and the number of people who were there to arrest these two, father and daughter duo, it was hilarious, because I mean, where were they going to run away? They were not sort of fugitives. They had come of their own volition to hand themselves over to the authorities. So I thought that was a bit excessive. And on that very day, we had a huge tragic incident in Balochistan. So I do think that the authorities were overstretching themselves here. They perhaps would have been best advised to pay attention to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. We could be saving a lot more lives if they were used to better, if they were using their resources a little bit better, maybe. But what I find odd about all of this is that we still don't have a picture of Maryam Nawaz Sharif. We had that iconic picture of Benazir Bhutto from behind the bars, and so everything that's being done seems to be to make sure that the mistake, I think it's a huge political mistake, and I think the planners who have, or the opponents of Sharif's, have actually miscalculated. Putting them in jail has given them a huge boost to these elections, have given the Sharifs and the PMLN a huge boost, and already you can see that there's resentment, a growing resentment towards even the military establishment, unfairly or fairly so, which is debatable. But now this kind of harsh treatment in the prison, the solitary confinement that they've put Maryam Nawaz Sharif isn't going unnoticed. She's volunteered to teach women and children in the confines of the prison, and she's been refused that. So all of this is not going unrecorded, and the fact that no pictures are being allowed also is because it seems like even within the confines of the prison, Maryam Nawaz Sharif and Nawaz Sharif are still a very powerful force. And I think that this miscalculation is going to cost them maybe the result of this election. Certainly the elections are looking very compromised. Any result of the elections which seems or is deemed to be unfair towards the PMLN voter is going to cause a lot more chaos, and that is what we should be worrying about. But I don't really see how they can now correct themselves, because we really we don't have much time. So I think the damage has been done, but the damage has not been done to Nawaz Sharif or Maryam Nawaz Sharif. The damage has been done to the campaign against the Sharifs. I think that they're being looked at very sympathetically, even by other parties, even by people who are in the PTI, who I've spoken to, even by people who are in the Pakistan People's Party. So I'm not sure if it's again, as I said, unintended consequences, and I can't repeat myself enough to stress that this is going to backfire. They've made Maryam Nawaz Sharif a huge political leader, and the fact that she's being kept in harsh conditions, and Nawaz Sharif is being not allowed medical treatment or treated harshly, not being given the right to have clean toilets, and being made to live in very uncomfortable situations, isn't going unnoticed, and it is going to backfire.
That's really interesting. You seem to be suggesting that the establishment has sort of tied itself into knots, and I want to press you further on this, because I can't help but notice there is a parallel here. There has been a lesson in history. I mean, when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was imprisoned and then sentenced to death and hung, Benazir Bhutto didn't even get the chance to see her own father's body being buried, and there was a huge sympathy wave that Ms. Bhutto received after Zulfikar was hanged. In fact, if you remember, as soon as General Zia ul Haq passed away, away and there was elections held, Benazir Bhutto won a landslide victory. So the images that Maryam Nawaz Sharif and Nawaz Sharif are conjuring today are quite similar to those of the past, even if we don't have photographic evidence.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm saying that, but what I meant was that people, this is not going, it's sort of, you know, very conspicuous that we've not been allowed any image of her. So the more mystery there is around it, people will obviously become more suspicious. So I think that even arresting the way they arrested was not going unnoticed. And you have to understand also that this is actually a lot more than Benazir Bhutto's time, because I remember I was in school at the time and we didn't have that many television channels. We didn't have this much. Of course, it was Zia's time as well. We didn't have a lot of Western media. We didn't have social media. We didn't have this vibrant social media, and it's all backfiring. And the more they criticize this woman, and the visceral hatred that I've seen for this woman is actually increasing the sympathy for her, because we've seen the image of a woman campaigning only for her mother or for her father back in 2013. We've never seen her in political office. A lot of people on the streets are saying, well, she's never been in political office. She's never even been contesting. So why are they so scared of a woman who's never contested? She's been disqualified, put away for God knows how many years. And she's ever been, every time that we've seen her on the streets, has been only to defend her family. So she's not been put there by her father. She's been put there by the opponents. They've built up this huge leader, and the fact that everything is so hush hush and there are no pictures coming out, but the audio message, for example, I had a lady call me up and she's a beloved Bhutto voter, and she was literally in tears because there was this emotional audio message of Maryam Nawaz Sharif, and you know, with the subcontinent we are very emotional people, and so that the fact that there's only an audio message and it's a kind of like a heartfelt plea to the voters not to be defeated, and people who are going there to meet her are quite impressed by her defiance. One of the people that I spoke to said that, you know, I had goosebumps when I met her because she was just so defiant, and she's sort of in there for the long haul. She's not expecting to be released after the elections, and you know, people cannot but be impressed by courage, and that's something that I don't know how they're going to now correct it. I remember a conversation a couple of years ago with someone who's very close to the establishment, and he said to me that we're going to take care of Nawaz Sharif, and I said to them at the time, I said, what are you going to do? You're going to make another Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. If you execute Nawaz Sharif, he's going to be a hero. If you put him in exile, he's going to be a hero. If you disqualify him for life, he's going to be a hero. And that's exactly what's happening. Today, Nawaz Sharif is a hero, and Imran has actually lost much of his integrity, much of his credibility, and actually for a sportsman, this isn't really a win, because all fingers are pointing at him. This is not seen as a fair race. A lot of even people who want to defend him find it very difficult to defend him under the circumstances. So, politics is not only about winning positions. Politics is about what the voter thinks about you. And in Pakistan, where we've had a very checkered democratic history, it seems that all fingers will point at the military establishment, even if they're not involved in it. So I'm saying time and time again that we have a couple of days left. They need to make sure that it looks like they are not part of this process. They need to make sure that this looks, or this is really a fair and free run up to the elections and fair elections. Anything that is remotely connected with the military establishment is going to cost them their reputation. Already, for the first time in our history in Punjab, we are seeing these slogans. We've never seen these slogans. Anti-establishment and anti-military slogans from Punjab are unheard of. This is the first time. And where are we going to go? So if I was to play devil's advocate, Raheel Sharif actually built up the image in his time. He had actually corrected the maligned image of the military in his time, and now we've seen a fall in their. If he were to do a poll today, the military is not going to come up on top.
Okay, so messaging far from on point right now. Stay with me, Reham, because the messaging, it becomes even more important in my opinion, given the fact that there is a staggering 17 million youth that are going to be, casting their vote this time around. But let's talk a little bit about an update that's just coming in as I speak. The jailed former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, has released an audio message from the Adiala jail. We were talking about messaging just now, and it seems that the former Prime Minister has decided to make that statement with the campaigning of this election coming to an end today. Pakistan, remember, goes to elections on July 25th. Listen in to what the Prime Minister had to say.
मैं मोहम्मद नवाज शरीफ जेल से बोल रहा हूँ। 25 जुलाई का तारीखी दिन आन पहुँचा है। मैं इस जेल और इस कैद में भी आपका जोश व खरोश और आपका वलवला देख रहा हूँ। हर तरफ वोट को इज्जत दो के नारे सुन रहा हूँ। मैं आपसे कहना चाहता हूँ कि बरसों से हमारा मुकद्दर बन जाने वाली खराबियों की गिरती हुई दीवार को आखिरी धक्का लगाने का लम्हा आ गया है। मेरे आज़ाद वतन के गुलाम बना दिए जाने वाले लोगों, अब बदल डालो ये सब कुछ। मैं और मरियम इसलिए कैद में हैं कि हमने आपकी इज्जत और आपके वोट की इज्जत के लिए ये तहरीक उठाई है। वक्त आ गया है कि आप इस तहरीक को कामयाब बनाएं और ऐसा तारीखी फैसला सुनाएं जो उन तमाम फैसलों को बहा ले जाए जिन्होंने पाकिस्तान को इंसाफ का कब्रिस्तान बना दिया है। 25 जुलाई को नमाज फजर के बाद भरपूर अज़म और पुख्ता इरादे के साथ घरों से निकलो, अपनी इज्जत और अपने वोट की हुर्मत के लिए मुस्लिम लीग नून को वोट दो और शेर के निशान को वोट दो। मुल्क की तकदीर बदल डालो। ये एक सुनहरी मौका है जो आपको मिल रहा है अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से, और इससे हर कीमत पे आपने पाकिस्तान की तकदीर बदलनी है। अल्लाह ताला आपका हामी व नासिर हो।
All right, so that was a statement that's been made, Reham, by the former Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. We were just talking about the fact that, there hasn't been a lot that's come out of the jail. But the fact that he's made this statement right now, asking for the electorate to vote for their dignity, can I ask you to react to that statement?
Well, I mean, Imran talks about tabdeeli, but what could be a greater tabdeeli than this? We have, this is historic as well, a leader addressing his people from the confines of prison. And it's very reminiscent of Erdogan, actually. And I remember the iPhone broadcast to the public. And so it's very similar, and we know what happened there. And I think this is revolutionary for our history. I think it's obviously on a personal level, I wish that this kind of ideological stance or this kind of you have to be on the right side of history, and I think that Nawaz Sharif is actually motivating the voters in the correct way, and certainly this is unique for Pakistan. This is pretty amazing, and honestly, if right now I'm wishing that this was the sort of stance, the ideological stance that perhaps Imran should have taken.
Reham, I guess critics of Nawaz Sharif will say that the statement, of course, it has, it does resonate at this point in time. But the fact of the matter is that he is behind jail after judicial process, that he is, has been accused of corruption charges, not just this time, before as well. And for some people, this is actually a victory of Pakistan's judiciary. The fact that a powerful person and his daughter, his son-in-law, have been brought to book for corruption. Do you think that this is also, in some ways, a very, difficult schism, if you will, in Pakistan's history, when on the one hand you want to believe in the judiciary and the right thing that they've done, but there are questions about motivation that also come up?
I don't think that there's a problem. I mean, I wouldn't agree with this statement there's a schism in Pakistani society. I think that towards the PTI camp, they don't care about due judicial process. They don't care about justice. It's ironic because, I mean, it's a party of movement of justice, but they just want to win by hook or by crook, and they are very happy about not to look into factual details. And so they're very happy to gloss over the details. They can be very economical with the truth. They just think that it's their right, and that's something, this sense of self-entitlement, that is something which is horribly wrong. In Pakistan's history, the judiciary has made a lot of decisions that the judiciary cannot defend today. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's decision was by the judiciary, the doctrine of necessity. So I don't think that there is any. I feel very sad about the fact that we were looking back in 2013 that the judiciary should reclaim and actually become stronger for once in Pakistan. But what we've seen is actually a lot of people from the judiciary also questioning this judicial process. They are openly saying that it's politically motivated. It's sad for me to see the pillars of state being maligned, but this time you can't really blame anyone else when the judiciary is seen to be you see, justice needs to be, it's not justice delivered, but justice needs to seen to be, it needs to be very transparent. And this time it doesn't look transparent. Nobody believes that the accusations or the allegations against Nawaz Sharif and how he was put away are serious. People think that if they were serious about corruption allegations, then they should have perhaps ventured further in some other serious issues, and that it should have been across the board. So I don't think that anyone is confused in Pakistan. People know that this is to get Sharifs out of the picture, whether they're in the pro-Sharif camp or anti-Sharif camp. Everyone knows, and it's sad to see major political and legal voices like Ehtezaz Ehsan compromise their sensibilities only for the prize. So I don't agree with this, that people are in two minds about it, and some are siding with the judiciary. You've heard Justice Siddiqui's statement.
Yes.
And he's made a very bold statement. That's never happened before. I do believe that there are going to be some other revelations also in the coming days.
Okay, let's actually talk a little bit more about Justice Siddiqui. You brought him up. Let's take our viewers through what the Pakistani army has said in response to the country's apex court, the allegations made toward it by a serving judge of the Islamabad High Court. Now, the Pakistani army has asked the apex court to probe the allegations leveled by Judge Shaukat Aziz Siddiqui. He had accused Pakistan's spy agency, that's the ISI, of meddling in the judiciary's affairs and seeking favourable verdicts. In fact, in a statement, the Pakistani Army spokesperson, Major General Asif Ghafoor, said, I quote, "In order to safeguard the sanctity and credibility of the state institutions, the Honourable Supreme Court of Pakistan has been requested to initiate appropriate process to ascertain the veracity of the allegations and take actions accordingly." End quote. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Chief Justice Saqib Nisar has taken notice of the statement by the Islamabad High Court Justice Siddiqui. He has asked the Pakistan Electronic Media Regulatory Authority, or PEMRA, to present the record of the complete speech that Mr. Siddiqui made. Meanwhile, the judge in question also wrote to Pakistan's Chief Justice to constitute an inquiry panel to probe the charges. He also said that he's ready to face consequences if he is proved wrong. Now, before we go any further, let's listen in to what Justice Siddiqui said about the ISI.
आज के इस दौर में ISI पूरी तरह जुडिशियल प्रोसीडिंग्स को मैनिपुलेट करने में इन्वॉल्व है। ISI के लोग मुख्तलिफ जगह पहुंचकर अपनी मर्जी के बेंच बनवाते हैं, केसों की मार्किंग होती है। मैं अपनी हाई कोर्ट की बात करता हूं। ISI वालों ने मेरे चीफ जस्टिस को अप्रोच करके कहा कि हमने इलेक्शन तक नवाज शरीफ और उसकी बेटी को बाहर नहीं आने देना, शौकत अजीज सिद्दीकी को बेंच में मत शामिल करो।
All right, a damning statement there from a serving member of Islamabad High Court, serving justice, I should say. We're running out of time, but before we go, let's remind our viewers that 48 hours are left to go for the elections. As far as the long election campaign in Pakistan goes, it's winding down tonight. It'll close at midnight, allowing candidates and voters a short breather before the polling begins on Wednesday. On the final day, Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf's Imran Khan will be holding a rally at Lahore, while the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Shehbaz Sharif addressed a rally at Rawalpindi. Imran's PTI is being projected to get the maximum number of seats in the elections ahead of the PMLN. Some opinion polls indicate that he may be able to form the government in alliance with some smaller parties. With Nawaz Sharif in jail and court cases against the Pakistan People's Party's Asif Ali Zardari, the campaign, however, was rather low-key overall this time. The campaign period also witnessed 2 terror attacks in which more than 170 people were killed. Let me go back to Reham Khan on that note for more on her opinion as far as the campaigning phase has been. Reham, who were the winners, the losers, if you will? Wrap this up for us. Tell us what you've thought of the entire process. It's been very colourful. It's been full of a lot of loose statements as well. And tragically, there have been 2 incidents that have led to the loss of untold number of lives. So it's overall winding down tonight, but it has left, let's say, a lot of us wondering what next in Pakistan.
Thank you, Aisha. And just to wind up, one of the things that no political leader, it didn't occur to anyone. So, you know, we talked about the Senate elections at the time. They shouldn't really be called, I think it's best to call the Senate arrangement at the time. And so this was done because the province has been neglected, and it was to mainstream the province and give them more political rights. So these are some of the facts. So no party leader in the run-up to the election campaign held a jalsa in the province of Balochistan. So, of course, the PMLN, Shehbaz Sharif, did 30 jalsas in the campaign, not a single one in Balochistan. Pakistan People's Party, the new champion, the young lad who is actually winning support and has done really well in Punjab, for quite surprising, and has been doing some really impressive marathon runs, and perhaps because he's young and energetic, but making all the right moves, did 44 jalsas in total, not one of them in Balochistan. And of course, the special one, the chosen one, the PTI leader, Imran, did 61 jalsas, not a single one in Balochistan. So how are they going to represent? Yesterday I was listening to the WION TV interview again, and he was talking about minorities. Imran was talking about minorities and the vulnerable. I think Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa have been and continue to be the most vulnerable provinces in the country. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan both have seen a lot of bloodshed in the run-up to the elections. NA won with the Balor family, a repeat of 2013. Nothing has changed. No political leader had the guts to even challenge the decision if they were not allowed, shall we say, to campaign in Balochistan. Karachi Jalsas, we've seen the videos circulating. People who support Altaf Bhai from the MQM were given money to support and hold Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's flags at the Jalsa. So it's looking like a colourful campaign, but I think it's looking like a colourful campaign from the point of view that it is just a concert. It is perhaps just a setup, and that's nothing more than just a colourful campaign. It's not really looking like a real election day. It's not looking like real democracy. And there's a time and place in every nation's history where you think enough is enough. And I think we've had a lot of colourful campaigns. We've had a lot of colourful rhetoric. We need leaders who can walk the talk. So if you say that you're going to protect the vulnerable, why not start from Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa? Why just focus on Punjab? Whether it's Imran or Bilawal Bhutto or indeed Shehbaz Sharif or even the Saraiki Mahaz. When they talk about protecting the weak in society, well, why could nobody challenge the Blasphemy Act? In fact, they're cozying up to those extremist elements. Where are those champions of our minorities? Imran is not the only one to blame. Has Bilawal Bhutto done that in this campaign as well? They're doing a very safe campaign. And despite the safe campaign, I don't think Pakistan is winning. I don't think democracy is winning. I don't even think Imran is winning, because it will be compromised elections, and the emergent winner will have compromised authority or none whatsoever.
Okay, so to borrow from Imran Khan's vocabulary, it seems like it's a fixed match. Reham Khan, thank you for joining us this evening from London and for being candid as always. We look forward to having you back on the broadcast tomorrow as well. It's time for us to wrap up this edition of the special Pakistan election show. Remember, Reham Khan will be with us through the week till the elections are well and truly done in Pakistan. This is Aisha Sindhu, though, for now, signing off. Bye-bye.